challenge for all of us is to say, yes, I've been coached well, I've had a mentor or two. What am I doing today? It's that dual challenge that we have. Am I Dan Kuecker right now? What am I doing to make myself better? How am I reaching out and engaging with others to have them help me stay physically fit? How am I getting in and having the right type of workouts and the right type of nutrition to stay aligned? Well, I kind of need a coach maybe to help me with that. And then the other challenge is then how am I being available and how am I investing myself, my talents? It's not enough to just sit there and be a successful entrepreneur and kind of be a role model or be a parent to be a role model. How am I really investing? Don't let it stop with just one breakfast or a lunch. Say, hey, I am available, but you can't push it on somebody. That person has really got to want it and want to commit to it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But I think it's needing it one direction and providing it the other direction is really a paradigm that can be very helpful on that mentorship piece.
Dan, why do humans, especially young people, need coaches, mentors, and role models? Like, what's important about them?
Yeah. Thank you. It is an important topic, and there's kind of a triad there where the three do work together for the growth of any individual, and it's important for our society and nation as well to kind of understand and deliberately put and invest in those three. And for me, just like lots of people, I've had coaches, mentors really invest in me, and it's helped shape who I am today. It shaped me at a young age. It shaped me in my young professional life. It helped shape me, as I transitioned to married life and parenting and even transitioning to what a retirement life looks like. I've had coaches, I've had mentors pour into me, and that's been very helpful. And at the same time with role models on a personal level, I've looked up to brothers, parents, grandparents, but even in the celebrity status, I've looked up to athletes to try to emulate, to be a good example in how I'm going to work hard and find success. And even if it wasn't really realistic that I was going to be the next Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, I understood there were the value of working hard and the value of overcoming. Even Tom Brady, a 6th-round draft pick. Well, he worked hard and he waited his time. There's some things out there with role models that can be very helpful. So at a personal level, it's important to me, and and you kind of want to pass it forward. So there's also then the dynamic within our society, the time and energy we spend, what we want to do with our life today, what kind of legacy do we want to have? I have concerns sometimes, but I have hope for our society and where we're going, and the polluting of our culture and some of the challenges that parents and people have. And one way to combat that is with this triad of positive role models, positive coaches, and positive mentors in someone's life. And there's lots of different ways that we can, as a society, as leaders in our communities, inject that into people that need it. And so it's kind of a dual challenge for anybody. It's the challenge of seeking out mentors and coaches in your life, but it's also being willing and able to invest in others, especially the next generation.
So let's take a step back.
Yeah.
What is the difference between each of these different kinds of roles? What is a role model? What is a mentor? What is a coach?
Yeah, for me, a role model is somebody that you don't ever get to know. It's somebody that's out there. We don't necessarily get to know, but it's not a two-way street. It's one way where somebody is in a role, is acting as a celebrity, as a parent, and you looked up, I want to be like that person one day. I'm the youngest brother, Sanker, and I looked up to my older brother. I want to be like Nick one day. I look up to my dad. I want to be like my dad, a strong German guy who works really hard and finds success in the world. You look to, in the arts world, I looked up to some pianist. I look up to some singer. I want to be like that person one day. With coaches, I look at it as somebody that's really injecting in you for a season, for a certain amount of time, and is looking at your performance, your hard work, and trying to train you to become better day in and day out. That hard work and getting you to see something different. You're the practicing that you're doing. The coach is that's going to help Steph Curry shoot better, encourage him to take 500 shots after every practice. That's your coaches. Then your mentors, you're going to step back. It's going to be somewhat of a strategic advisor in your life, somebody you're going to talk to once a month, once a quarter, who's going to challenge you, kind of help you gain perspective, to help you make good decisions with your life, to prepare yourself for a transition in life, to find success when you go to college or when you go get that first job. So that mentor can come in a lot of different places. But that's also unique because you usually choose your mentor. You have to seek out and choose that. You don't normally choose your coach. Your coach is just there. You know, there's some examples where somebody's maybe looking at a college and you're going to seek a coach and a school. But for the most part, you get the coach you have. And the coach is there to find teamwork and make a team succeed. And sometimes it's really unique because the coach also has as a dual success track. Yeah, the coach wants you to become better, but the coach also has a personal reason. The coach wants to find success and maybe move on with their own life. A mentor doesn't really have that dynamic. That mentor is there to commit, to really look to where you are and make you find success. It doesn't have some sort of mutual benefit from the relationship like a coach sometimes does.
That's definitely super helpful, and especially just differentiating between the mentor and the coach, I think, was the one that confuses me the most. Mm-hmm. Just understanding the difference, and I think that there can be a blend, obviously, of both, because I think that, and same thing with role models. I think they're all three are a lot of times interconnected. But what would you say are good public examples of these three different kinds of roles, and just like how they shape, whether it be your life or just lives in general, and are great examples of each of these kind of things?
Yeah, I think first one is those role models come in a lot of different ways. It's celebrity, who are culture, who Hollywood and some of the other producers of this world, who they put out in front of us, and that's who we generally look up to. It's singers sometimes, it's Taylor Swift, it's athletes, it's politicians, and I think what's important with the role model is it's the idea, not the person that you want to follow, because humans are flawed, and if you invest too much in a person, we see it a lot with politicians. But we see it with celebrities too. We sometimes want to bring them down, and we all are going to be flawed and screw up somehow, and so you don't want to be disappointed from that. But again, it's the vision of that, and sometimes the way we combat that is you find role models in your own community, and where that role model, as you had said earlier, can also be maybe a coach or a mentor, a parent, an uncle, a grandparent. A coach on a team, then when they're not coaching you anymore, or as you would continue a relationship, your high school coach can transform into a mentor. A lot of coaches are there as kind of an advisor, a support network for former athletes. I always joke when I've coached kids in the past that they said, hey, I'm your forever coach. I'm always here. And saying that, and I'm really not their coach, is I'm always here to be your mentor. Because if you go on to college and you go on to life, I'm not going to be in there in the trenches with you, coaching you from afar. Yeah. But I can be there as somebody that can be a sounding board. If you're in a rough patch in your life, you're working with a coach and it's just not working really well, who's somebody that I trust, that I can reach out to, be a little bit vulnerable for. We kind of have a bit of that confidential relationship in a sense too. And with that vulnerability, say, hey, I need a little bit of help here. So it's kind of a strategic advisor, for lack of a better term. And that can be in the education world too, where teachers can play the role of the coach. And sometimes even, there's a lot of teachers out there that there's a handful of kids that they can be a bit of an advisor and a mentor with as well. And that can be a little bit more longer term.
Mm-hmm. So let's think about like what makes a great coach, what makes a great mentor, and what makes a great role model. What are the traits that for each of these different avenues? We can start with a coach. What makes a great coach?
Yeah, that coach, again, it's trust. It's that commitment, I think, is the first thing. Where that player, that artist, that that student, whoever it is that's being coached, even in a fitness world, you're going to have a strength coach, you're going to have a personal trainer, somebody that is there and demonstrates commitment to you. When you're working out with this person, they are 100% engaged with you. They're not distracted by something else. They want to kind of invest in you as a coach. And so it's really important for that the player sees that. It's important for that coach also to have, I guess, a bit of the credibility.
I was about to say that. I think that he needs to be someone that has like credibility that he can stand on, and that it shows that he or she has background, has experience, has something of value that they can teach and transfer, whether it be skills, knowledge, whatever, to the younger person. Yeah,
and so it's that connecting, it's that relationship thing. And so that's why sometimes, coaches who are all jacked, a strength coach, that's going to be the perfect trainer for me. Well, maybe you can look up to that person and say, wow, you're really in good shape. But can that person relate to somebody who's 20 pounds overweight and is struggling with a lot of different things that person who is in tip-top shape in a Olympic bodybuilder type setting, maybe they can't connect with someone. So I could look up to them, yes, you're all ripped, or I can look up as a player and say, hey, you played in the NFL, you played Division I college, you must be a great coach. Maybe, and they do have some credibility, but it's the connection as well. It's those soft skills as a coach that are important, and how you communicate, how you listen, how you build the rapport, and what's that, because a lot of coaching is relational, and but can you get that drive? And you got to understand what the climate you're in. Some of the coaches of a generation or two ago with a little more aggressive tactics don't necessarily work with this generation. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. You see how Nick Saban, Alabama, one technique, and then somebody else comes in as a different technique. It takes some time there. So there's different pieces there, but I think that's a piece. You got to have credibility. You got to have that commitment, and you with the mentor, it's a little bit softer. I think that trust is even more important. Certainly, the challenging, kind of the caring about you individual. You're tailoring your advice to the position that mentee is in at that time. With the coach, it's the team, or in gymnastics or swimming, it might be the individual as well. But there's kind of an immediacy to the results and the performance with the coach, whereas the mentor, it's a little more long-term with that. So, but again, with that mentor, it's got to have commitment as well. You have to demonstrate that you are in. You're not just going to be on 2 or 3 calls over five months. That, hey, I'm in this for the long term, and I'm in it for you. That trust is there. Sometimes, again, with the duality of a coach, are you really in it for me, or are you in it for yourself? Some coaches certainly want to go on to have, you're an assistant coach at a college, you want to be a head coach one day. If you're a head coach at a small school, you want to go to a larger school. The NFL, you kind of have those things, and players see that, of course. And so then with the role model, that's interesting because you don't necessarily choose to be a role model. You just are. If you find success, if you find excellence in this world, people are going to look up to you. Charles Barkley once said a long time ago, it was a little bit controversial. He did I think it was on a kind of commercial. He looked in the camera and said, I don't want to be your role model. Don't look at me. I just am who I am. I want to play basketball. And if you're looking for a positive influence in your life, why would you look to me? And it was an interesting philosophical take on role models because it's a little, I don't want to say ignorant, but he can say that, and it's good for him to say that, but he doesn't get to choose whether somebody is or doesn't look up to him because people do. He's part of the culture. But what he's also trying to say, look to your own community, look to the influential people in your own families and your neighbors in different places. Those are the ones, too, that you should look up to. And so I get what he's also saying there.
And it's interesting. it seems like role models, like you said, isn't really a relationship. It's something or someone that you look up to. It can be a relationship, but isn't inherently. I think that the coaches and mentors are, but it seems like mentors is a much more holistic picture of you and your well-being across different areas, while coaches is about development in some kind of niche where you're trying to develop a skill or education, or some kind of subsector of your life. And that's interesting because it's really relevant because in my life, I've definitely had a lot of coaches, mentors, role models. And I think that one of the things as I was thinking about this conversation before today is just there's so many different areas that I've had different people. And I've had a lot of coaches, it seems like, because I thought that I had gotten coaches and mentors mixed up. Looking back, I've found that there's a lot of people that, let's just say, focus on a different part of my career pursuits, my academic pursuits, my athletic pursuits, whatever it is, and they were focused in that part. But the ones who would go beyond the scope of just whatever developmental pursuit that I'm in became mentors in the long run for me. And those are the ones that I tended to have the best relationships with. When you think about a Coach Wilson from high school, he was my football coach who trained me every day and would push me to become the best football player that I could be. He's still in touch with me today, and we have a great relationship, and has helped me become one of the people, or become the man that I am. Or a Ben Melchers. He was my youth group leader, and it was within the scope of faith and my spiritual development, but he cared about me as a whole person, and the other areas that went into my life, and developed a great relationship with him. And so I think that a great coach also is, in a lot of times, a mentor, because when you want to develop in one area, there's a lot of things that kind of impact how you can pursue your sports, your faith, your career. And you're not just one part. You're not just an athlete. You're more than just an athlete, or you're more than just someone who's pursuing a career. And so when they take a step back and take that into account, that helps them be able to coach you in the best way possible.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. And certainly there's blending, and the best coaches are acting as mentors as well. It's that on the coach level and the player level, it's that iron sharpening iron dynamic as well. If you go to Ranger school, you're going to have Ranger instructors, you're going to have coaches there trying to make you better, and they're going to be putting you into all sorts of environments that are going to test you and challenge you to become better. It's that performance piece. So you talked about your high school coach. He was working with you day in and day out to try to make you perform better on the football team. Now, the best coaches also, during that time, but also then later, they commit to you. But many times they have to also be asked, and the individual wanting it has to say, hey, I'd like to develop a bit more of a relationship beyond coaching and performance here to try to find success on the gridiron, to find success. The music teacher is making you a better pianist, is making you a better trombone player, and is trying to sharpen that iron. But as it becomes to, okay, what are you going to do with this skill set in college? What's your career maybe going to be? How does that juxtapose with having a living one day? Are you going to be able to make a living as being a football player or a flutist or even in an academic setting? If you really want to study philosophy, what are you going to do with that philosophy degree? Mm-hmm. It's not just the teacher, it's not just the coach there. It's somebody that's that's a mentor. It could be a college advisor. It could be, we can talk a bit about in the school setting, what are the schools programmatically putting into a student's life to help them make those strategic decisions. It could be alumni. You could have a well-functioning alumni program. You could have an advisor, so a professor takes 10 advisees over the course of the year where they're going to sit down and have discussions with them. The role of a parent, parent has, the foundation of a parent is well beyond coaches, role models, and mentors, but it includes all three of those. You want your kids to look up to you and emulate certain things that you do. That's why you try to live a certain way, and you want to coach them, sharpen their iron. But you also put in being a mentor is parenting. That's one of the reasons why I pulled out of coaching my son at a certain age in youth sports, where I didn't want to blend the coaching and parenting quite as much. Let somebody else coach him and let me parent him. And it blends a bit, but I think that's important. And as a parent also, who are you trying to put in your child's life that can be a strong coach, that can be a strong mentor in the school setting or outside, that will partner with you, in a sense, to help develop your child in a good way. You need those good influences beyond the parent unit or the family unit, which is really important, but in a sense, it does take a community of leaders to help. And so I think that is also really, really important.
Yeah, and tell me about someone who was a great mentor in your life and how that helped you.
Yeah, when I was in undergrad, I had had a wonderful relationship with our college president. I was, as a junior, I was the student president at the college. He was new to the college as a president, and just had a really nice relationship. And of course, it wasn't really coaching at the time, and it wasn't mentoring at the time, but there was certainly a respect from me to him, and I was able to spend time with him and see him operate, was a bit of a role model at the time. And then as it came time to graduate and went into the military and doing different things, he was there and available for me to reach out to and talk to over a period of time. And certainly when it was very important when I began transitioning to retirement from the military. I had many conversations with him. He was retired, living in Florida, and just would challenge me, and it would give me things to read, it'd give me things to think about between conversations I would have with him. And then he would share, no regrets in this life, but maybe as he looked back, things he would do a little bit differently. He observed me as a college administrator, as a college president for decades. These are maybe some talents that you have. These are some gifts that you have that you maybe don't even see yourself. You should think about doing these things. In retrospect, he maybe was right on some things that I didn't do at the time. But he was just putting those dynamics in front of me and other thought leaders for me to go reach out to and have discussions with and to read and do some reflection. So I think that's on one front. In the faith community for me, there was a military chaplain when I lived in Germany who was extremely influential to me in my young 20s and trying to help me wrestle with being kind of away from home in the upper Midwest lifestyle for a while. My first time in another country, trying to live and navigate all sorts of issues of the world. He was somebody that was there. He certainly wasn't coaching me. My boss at work was helping me perform better, and others were. But he was somebody who, on a regular basis, I spoke with, and he really helped me find success and confidence during that time in my life.
And what was it that he did so well that you really think that really made a difference for you?
Yeah, again on a couple of fronts. One, he was regular and he was committed. He was open and available for me to reach out to. He offered opportunities outside of my workplace to one, kind of challenge myself, and to give of myself through the small little chapel service that was there, through kind of leading some other groups that were faith-based at the time, walking through what does my walk in faith look like while being in the military. It was just such a influential time in my life, young 20s, that just having a strong individual giving into me, willing to give into me and be there, was important. And he also just kind of asked challenging questions and put challenging reads and books in front of me to kind of do some reflection and thinking as I strengthened my faith, as my personal walk with Christ matured. He was just the one that was there to help lead that, and that was really important. And then just some folks, when I deployed the first time to Iraq, where you just kind of have some fear, some enhanced faith in the foxhole there. There was one individual, a chaplain there, who was playing the same type of role. I was a little older at that time, but still a single guy. But it wasn't just living alone in your 20s. It was in your late 20s, 30s, going to Iraq and just kind of figuring things out. Faith in the foxhole really, really important confidence and growth in me as a man.
Did you have did you have a role model that you grew up really idolizing, and what was it about them that you really kind of looked up to?
Yeah, it was my parents, my dad, especially, as being a strong, stereotypical German. He was a community leader, well respected. I certainly just looked up to him. I was the youngest of 3 boys. My 2 older brothers found success. So their lifestyles, their actions were just something that I just kind of looked up to and followed. At a more national level, I guess there were some politicians that you kind of look up to, not knowing any better. I was a big Dan Marino fan growing up. I wanted to be a quarterback. I was Dan, and there was a Sports Illustrated. I still remember this. My mom did it. There was a cover of a Sports Illustrated magazine once. It said "Dangerous Dan," and he was on there throwing. And my mom cut out the face of him, and she put my face into it and gave it to me as a present. But I just always wanted that type of thing, the quick release. And he, obviously he doesn't know me. This is the art of being a role model. When I was out throwing, I thought of him. When I was playing wiffle ball, I was thinking about being Kirby Puckett and hitting the home run in Game 6, Game 7 of a World Series. And so there was dynamics there where they didn't know me, but shooting the last second shot of a game, I was thinking of at the time for Willie Burton. Was a Minnesota Gopher basketball player. I was thinking of, I guess, Jordan. You're thinking 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 at the last second. You hitting that shot in the '83 national championship game. Whatever it is, that motivates you to get back out and practice some more, because you see that and you want to do that. That's the example that you want to follow. That's why it's important to have positive role models in our culture right now. We also have influences that make a parent's job even harder because of everything that's put in front of our kids so young right now.
Yeah,
that makes it much more. Whether it's language, it's adult themes, it's sex early on, it's the language in music, it's just all these things that these kids are seeing where, if this person that's a role model in this world talks about sex at 13 or sex at 15, or talks about drinking underage or doing all sorts of things that are a little more destructive behavior, it makes the job as a parent a little harder. So you got to be careful with role models both ways that we see right now.
Totally. And I think there's a couple things that I noticed in that. One, I think having a father figure as a role model is probably like, that's your first role model almost always. And that's the person that you fall back to. And it gets tricky when there is no father figure in a household, because then they're looking for that role model and trying to find it. And sometimes it works out where they find it in someone else that is positive reinforcement, but sometimes it doesn't, like you talked about, and it goes to places where it shouldn't. And I mean, just even for my dad's story, his dad wasn't he had a dad in the household, but his dad wasn't a good role model for him. He didn't treat his family the way he should, or provide for his family the way he should. And so he didn't look up to him as a role model. He actually ended up finding a role model in his 9th grade PE teacher, who was also his freshman football coach, Coach Jackson. And so Coach Jackson was the person he went to when his junior year he got evicted from his house and all their stuff's on the street, and they had to go and live in a motel for a little bit and kind of just like rethink life. I mean, when your stuff's on the street, you're really having to think about life differently. But he said he went back to his motel, figured out how to get to school, got his homework done, and the first person he went to see was Coach Jackson. And so that was his role model who he looked up to, but also just like his mentor. And so that's where you see both of them come together. And Coach Jackson, he always says, like, Coach Jackson says, like, shed a tear and then you got to move on. You can't feel bad for yourself. You can't be a victim. And even through all the Alzheimer's, one of the names he remembered to the very end, of remembering any names, was Coach Jackson. And so that's where that Coach Jackson probably didn't choose to be his role model, but he took my dad under his wing and made a huge impact on his life. He taught him these life lessons, whether it be working hard or not be a victim or whatever it is, that those things, even at such a young age, stuck with him to the last things he can remember. And I think it's really powerful and really important, especially if you're a father, because then you, in a way, kind of chose that role of being a role model. You had a kid. Now you've chosen to be a role model, and you need to step up whether you want to or not. And so now that you're on the other side, what are some of the ways that, obviously you as a father, but what are the ways that you see yourself being a coach, a mentor, and a role model in your life today?
Yeah. Well, first, just thanks for sharing that story. I mean, your father's a remarkable man on many levels, and I mean, it just shows the importance of strong coaches, mentors, role models in this world. That your dad, Coach Jackson, challenged himself, and stepped up to be that influential figure for your dad, and that paid great dividends.
Huge.
Countless dividends, because then how many people have how many young men and women has your dad been a strong role model, coach, and mentor to over the years? And he's passing it to you, and how many you're going to be, and all because of Coach Jackson. And you're right, you don't always choose your role models, and you don't choose your parents. In some settings, it's to have an absent parent is far from best. Having an unhealthy parent in the household, it can be even worse many times. And because that's your role model, that's what you see. Your dad resisted that, which is kudos to him, and found a positive influence. Many people get caught in that, and it just becomes generational. They see, this is the way I should act, and so when I'm a parent one day, I'm going to act like that too. And it just continues that negative trajectory.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to interrupt one more
Please.
time.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I noticed that you talked about is that they need to relate in some kind of way. And I think that's super important. And there needs to be, you talked about with like Dan Marino, you both had the same name, Dan. And that was something that you thought connected, and you love football. Like, a lot of times these young men and women are looking for someone who they can relate to, who they can connect with. And that's why I think for young men and boys growing up, it's so important to have a father figure, a male figure, that's in their lives and that can speak into how they live, because they can relate. They both have gone through these life experiences in the same way that maybe your mom or a female figure in your life just can't. And so I think that's super important, that it is someone that you have some kind of way to relate with. And that's where a lot of times when you think about, let's just say, Black culture in general, they relate with other people of color, and that tends to be where you see the ones that are role models, and today are the ones who've found success. And success, a lot of times, the way media portrays it, is in music and sports. So when you ask every young kind of minority youth what they want to be, who they look up to, it's an artist or it's a pro athlete. And so they connect with those people and they want to be like those people, and invest so much of their time and energy into being just like those guys. And a lot of times these guys don't want to be role models, and so not always the best example. And that does impact the youth. That's why you can't have, no offense to John Morant, but have him waving guns around and doing all kinds of dumb things, is because whether you like it or not, you've been chosen to be a role model from these young boys and girls, but especially young boys. And these guys relate with you. They've grown up in probably the same kind of way that you have, and they want to be like you. So whether you like it or not, you need to step up to the plate. But it's interesting to see how different cultures have different kinds of role models along the way as well, and how they relate to them.
In our school systems these days, people say, well, what could we do? What can Mentor do? I think our schools can be great partners, and our community leaders at a local level can do a much better job of partnering with schools to help parents, help families, and even help families and parents, hold themselves accountable a bit. It's not all about the schools finding a way to make it work for the students in there. Doesn't all fall on them. It's families, it's communities. We all need to come together and do this. And that's where I think this concept of this triad of role models, mentors, coaches can be really important. When we're hiring staff for a school system, or we're looking at programming within a community, who are the right people out there that we need to find that can say, okay, I know you're really successful at business. Okay, I know you're really successful, doing something different. Hey, you're a military veteran. You're a Vietnam vet. You're a Gulf War time period vet. Your service hasn't ended yet. Can we find a way to put you in front of these youth in a way? And Big Brothers Big Sisters does a good job, and a lot of other programs are out there doing it. But I think we need to redouble and re-energize that effort of putting the right influences in front of our kids at a young age to assist, just like Coach Jackson was with your dad. Your dad had a bad role model in the home, but Coach Jackson connected with your dad. So who are those people that can connect? And so when we're hiring teachers, when we're hiring people in the staff, it's not just somebody that's an exceptional historian that needs to come into the classroom and teach history. It's not just the exceptional writer or mathematician that needs to come into the classroom and teach. It's the person, or same thing with coaching. It's not just the exceptional offensive genius that needs to be to be coaching. It's those coaches, those teachers who can relate and connect, have the credibility, and then have that commitment to follow through and be there like Coach Jackson was for your father. And I think that's how you beat it, because then when you see John Morant doing what he's doing, or somebody else, in his defense, he's 19, 20 years old. That's what he's seen, and all of a sudden he's thrown into the public domain, and he has no preparation for it, and he has not thought about being and really he shouldn't be. And that's why we need other people in our culture to say, no, the role model is not that, and the role model is something else. And that's where even our adults in the news media and those who are producing our movies and different types of, our Netflix executives who are putting all of this content in front of our kids, the social media, masters of the universe that are putting things in front of us. We need to also challenge them to, okay, we don't need that influence in front of our kids, and we need to hold them accountable as well. In maybe some public, I don't know if shaming is the right word, but pushing back and saying, no, this is not acceptable at 4:30 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon on our television screens.
Yeah, and I think working with schools, I think Princeton did a really good job of navigating this. I think that's one of the reasons why they're really, really successful, is because they have done a great way of partnering with great role models, great mentors, great coaches, and navigating those relationships. And they also have people that want to be great coaches, role models, and mentors. And that's what makes it so great, is that they have a community who's invested in helping the next generation find success, because it's almost like the generation did it before for you, so now you need to do it for the next generation. And I don't think it always has to look like a full-on teacher or a full-on employee. One of the things that we did at Princeton was we had a lot of career nights where they would bring in alums, and whether it looked like a panel discussion or it looked like, even better, where you go and do some mock interviews or discussions with some of these alums and kind of talk with them for 15 minutes each, the different areas that they went into and some of the challenges that they face. But I think when you start with that, these are people that relate with us. They played football at Princeton. They played football. They went through the struggles. They're ambitious. They want to do something with their life. And a lot of times people, this is really connecting to networking when you think about choosing and pursuing people to connect with and to get almost coaching or mentorship from. And a lot of times networking, I see it has like a negative connotation, and done correctly can be so beneficial. And I think that's where it's like you look at the transactional versus relationship building. And if we can figure out how to utilize networks with schools and start to build those relationships. Our coach, Coach Verbit, every time we had those things, he would always pester us to make sure to reach out and pursue these people afterwards. Find someone that you connected with. Find someone that you related with, and reach out and follow up and start to build a relationship with them. You can't expect them to do all the caring and reach out to you. And so Coach Verbit did a great job of coaching us on how to find great mentors and how to utilize these things. And so maybe we need to figure out how can we, get these people that have the credibility, who would be great coaches, mentors, role models, and bring them into these communities, expose our youth to them, instead of saying, just look at what's on TV to find your role models and mentors. How can we bring them into these settings and into these communities? And then how can we have the people that are in place right now, the leadership we have in place, teach these young kids these young men and women to pursue relationships, not just a transaction. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, is that I teach people that are coming up through career or sports, is that they just want to connect one time when they reach out to someone, and they basically just check the box of getting their name and their phone number or something like that. But if you actually want to learn something, like, go reconnect and update them and tell them about the different things going on in your life. And if we can figure out how to do that and integrate those people into the communities, I think that's going to be a huge win.
Yeah, great point. I think it's it's critical to try to combat everything that's going on. And if we want to find success in the next decade or two as a nation, we need that. A couple of thoughts. Everything you said is antithetical to what we're seeing with the transfer portal right now.
Yeah.
It,
It's so tough.
students are just going from one to the other. It's so transactional.
So transactional.
And so it's a challenge. Now, to be fair, coaches were sometimes doing that before, and so it's a little more complicated. You need to have fairness here. But what we're seeing right now is our student athletes are not being poured into in a coaching, mentoring type of way. It's transactional. They're getting their paycheck. They're there for a year or two, and if it's not working out, you're jumping to something else. You're not being challenged, and the first step of adversity, you're jumping someplace else. So I think there's something we need to continue working with there. The other thought is you were talking about your time at Princeton and the culture that's there. You need to develop and a culture needs to be created to have a mentorship program work. I just remember in the military, there was a couple of times in some units or branches that I was in, we did some reflection as how do we better manage and lead our professionals. In those that were having success, we found, are the ones that had mentors, and those who maybe were being left behind didn't have that mentor helping them navigate and look at which job to take next and how to balance family concerns with work ambitions. And so one of the things we looked at was, okay, we're going to force a mentorship program onto the Corps. And so we're all going to have to find a mentor, and we're all going to have to be available for being a mentor. And we also found that didn't work very well either because it wasn't part of the culture. You need to have people genuinely committed to doing it as a mentor, but it's just as important for young people to want to invest in their lives and their future and to have a little bit of courage to reach out to somebody who's at a different point in their career, who you look up to as a role model, and not be nervous, but say, sir, ma'am, this is who I am. I was wondering if you could pour into me a little bit over the next year or two and act as my mentor. I think you'd be a good fit because, and this is what I'm looking for. Is this something you would consider? Mm-hmm. And that's a tough conversation to have. And so as a 20-something or even as a teenager, you have to be, also step up to the plate a bit and care about your own future. Yeah. And to do it and not just go play the next video game and not just worry about the next fantasy football league or not worry about the next party or whatever it is that's going on in your life. You got to really step up and show concern for that. So it was a culture piece that was missing for us. And so we went back to encourage it and try to develop the culture instead of forcing it on the Corps. And so I think that's important. And that's where faith, some of this, within churches, within faith-based institutions, colleges and otherwise, you've got there's not perfection in this world, except when you talk, in the Christian faith, Jesus Christ being a role model, mentor, and a coach. The word is there, and so you're never going to be, disappointed like you would be from a human role model. You're not going to have that in the faith context. And so I think within those circles, it's even easier to have the culture of mentorship because you have the perfect one to emulate in what you're doing there. And I've seen success sometimes come from that in that setting.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that you said that really hit home for me was having to be interested in your own long-term success. I think one of the biggest things that's helped me is that when I develop these relationships with mentors, they are interested in what you want to do with your future. They want to hear about your ambitions. They want to hear about the different things that you want to do in life, and then they become invested in helping you achieve those things. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you have to work with them to process and think about what are some of the avenues that you are interested in, and to be working towards it. When I would follow up with my mentors, I would every couple months tell them, like, here's the things that I've been doing, and they see, oh, like he's actually trying to do different things, and it's huge, because they get to know who you really are. And I think it's important to find a few good people. And this is one of the biggest problems, is that when you network, you try to build LinkedIn. Everybody's trying to have 500 plus connections. You don't need 500 mentors. You don't need 500 role models. You don't need 500 coaches. You need a few good people who really know you and who know how, obviously, what they're talking about. You want them to understand and have credibility, and they want to understand you for what you want, to get to know you over time. And then they can vouch for you too. I think that's like a very underrated part of just like business and life, is find a few good people who can put their flag down and say, I'm vouching for you. That's been a big part of my personal career, is finding a few people that could vouch for me. But yeah, I think quality over quantity is a big part of it.
Yeah, to have success there, you have to be hungry for information. You got to be a lifelong learner. You got to want to challenge yourself, and that personal courage that comes with even reaching out to the mentor, but the personal courage to look in a mirror and say, am I doing my best right now? Or is this current career field really the right fit for me? Making that transition might be a little bit scary. You know, in the military context, a lot of people were thinking, I've got this paycheck coming in twice a month, and yes, I can't get fired, but you know, I'm going to get paid next month. I'm going to get paid the following month. In corporate America, you sometimes have some of that too, and it becomes easy to just stay there.
Yeah.
What's tough is to take that step of faith, believe in yourself, believe in your skill set, that you have something to give in another setting too. And so if you're not finding purpose or passion where you're at, do you just continue to accept that, or do you move on? So that's also a time where it's really important to have somebody else you can lean on. You have that mentor. You can have faith, the Bible, to lean on, to give you that confidence, and you know that, hey, if I take that step, I might not know exactly where I'm landing, but you take that step, there is foundation there, and you will be able to continue your walk, even if you take a new direction.
Yeah, and I think, like, at the end of the day, you need to show that they're not wasting, like, your role models and mentors. I wouldn't say not wasting their time, but that's kind of part of it, is that you want to be helped. I think that you need to show initiative and that you desire to do something with your life, and that you're not just checking a box and looking for shortcuts. I mean, you're trying to genuinely become a better version of yourself. And sometimes there's going to be stretches where you may not obviously want that, and that's why it's important to have people to help you start to take steps towards yourself. But you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
Yeah, great point. That's where I think as our education model matures and evolves in the coming years, the importance of the gap year is only going to become greater. You're seeing more and more high achievers from high school saying, I'm not sure I want to go to college yet, and I'm going to take a gap year, do something a little bit different. They're a little bit more mature, a little bit more prepared to go into college. And even those that just are still searching, is the ROI there to take out a bunch of debt to go to college to figure out what you want to do in this world? And so it kind of also relates is, when is college that mentor and coach, and you just go chisel yourself and figure it out? Or do you take a step back and deliberately find depth in a relationship and do it sooner rather than later to try to figure that out? So when you do decide to go to college, or you do decide to take that job, you're all in, and you know what it's going to take, and you're there for the right reasons, and you can see the blinking light at the end of the road of wherever you're at, that I'm going to have satisfaction and fulfillment at the end of this next venture.
Yeah. And I think as we kind of wrap this up, I would love for you to really tie together why we need all three of these different roles, how they work together to help the different areas of your life.
Yeah, again, I called it this triad. In if we're just thinking about the next generation, but it can't be. It can be 20 and 30 somethings that are trying to figure something out, or even older. We all have a desire to look up to role models. We all have a need to be coached, to have our iron being sharpened by other people's iron, to think about performance and what am I doing in the moment to become a better man, to become a better woman, to become a better employee, to become a better entrepreneur, to become a better player. What am I doing in that moment? We need that, but it's not just that that's important. We need that strategic thought and direction of where is my life purpose? Where are the goals? Where am I going to find career, familial, personal satisfaction, where I'm going to look back at my life 20, 30, 40 years from now and say, yeah, the adventure was great, but I also, found something of substance during that path. And so I think that mentorship is really important too. And then looking at this, I think the challenge for all of us is to say, yes, I've been coached well, I've had a mentor or two. What am I doing today? It's that dual challenge that we have. Am I Dan Kuecker right now? What am I doing to make myself better? How am I reaching out and engaging with others to have them help me stay physically fit as I'm aging? My body's not what it used to be. How am I getting in and having the right type of workouts and the right type of nutrition to stay aligned? Well, I kind of need a coach maybe to help me with that. Michael Jordan had a coach. Tom Brady had a coach. Well, Dan Kuecker probably can have a coach too to help me along. It doesn't have to be a paid strength trainer, but who is there kind of your accountability partner and helping you do that? On the mentorship piece, who am I reaching out to? Where I'm at right now and where I want to be, who are the 102 people out there that I can talk to and ask and say, this is what I kind of want right now. Can you talk with me every couple of months? Can you offer me thoughts? I'll fill you in with where I'm going, but you make me kind of reflect and answer some difficult, challenging questions. And then the other challenge is then how am I being available and how am I investing myself, my talents? It's not enough to just sit there and be a successful entrepreneur and kind of be a role model or be a parent to be a role model. How am I really investing into my kids, my nieces and nephews, my neighbors' kids? How am I investing in the buddies of my kids and just the community as a whole, of being available as a coach with the time I have? It doesn't have to be a specific sports coach, but just kind of being there after school and then being available for somebody to reach out to and say, hey, I know you've had a career in the military. I'm thinking about going into the military. Can I sit down and have a conversation with you? Well, don't let it stop with just one breakfast or a lunch. Say, hey, I am available, but you can't push it on somebody. That person has really got to want it and want to commit to it. Otherwise, it doesn't work, as we said before. But I think it's needing it one direction and providing it the other direction is really a paradigm that can be very helpful on that mentorship piece.
So if you had 60 seconds to summarize what we talked about today, what did we talk about?
Yeah. I think the first thing is recognizing how you've been blessed by role models, mentors, and coaches in the past. Where do you see in our culture, in our community, in your community, that there are opportunities that have been seized by people and where that's working well? Because it is working well in lots of settings. And then also sensing where can you plug in? Where can we plug in to be an asset, to be furtherly engaged in that setting, to not only help your own family network, but to kind of think broader and pass it forward, to think generationally, what is your legacy? What is the long-term benefit? How can you plug into your community a little bit better to engage smartly. And it's not about you in that sense. And a lot of coaches and others are thinking about themselves as they navigate, and there's a dynamic there that can be challenging to hear, but you're doing it to really, as we talked about before, the platinum rule, find out where other people are and helping them where they are.
Great work. Well, Dan, this was a pleasure. I'm excited to hear it, and I'm really glad we were able to talk about this, because mentorship's definitely been mentors, role models, and great coaches have been a huge part of what's helped me become the man that I am. And I think that it's something that is really important. And I think that we've lost a lot of it. Everything's been about me, and very few people are focused on how can I give back and serve as a role model, mentor, or coach without it benefiting me in some kind of way. And I think that when you take a step back, and I mean, Princess Mono, I don't remember exactly, but something like in service of humanity is really, people buy into it. And I think that's why it's found a lot of success, is because of the great people. It has great teachers. It's a great place, great academics, but I think the people are what make it great. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to go there. And I'm grateful for all the mentors even before then, whether that be in my faith, in my sports, my dad at home. And I think that, when society can start to embrace having great leaders who step into these different kinds of roles, whether they want to or not, is when we'll start seeing a lot of benefits among the young women and young men that are in society today.
Yeah, it's great, and I love what you're doing and how you're engaging, especially at such a young age. I'm hopeful for your generation that's going to do more of that. My age, than in some instances, my generation has. Success comes in a lot of different ways. It's financial success, yes, that's important.
Yeah.
But what is it that you want spoken of you at your funeral? What is that? How does that obituary read? It's not going to show your net worth. It doesn't mean you avoid that. You can do a lot of good things in this world by developing wealth. That's okay. But there's something beyond that. There's a great book that I invested in when I some time in when I retired from the military. Bob, I forget the author's name, but anyway, it's talking about success. It's halftime, going from success to significance. And so sometimes, I had the opportunity of retiring from the military in my mid to late 40s. Blessed by that. It gives me lots of opportunity. It doesn't provide me enough funds to live on, so I still have to do a few other things, but it gives me a lot more, allows me to be a lot more deliberate with what I'm going to do. And so this book really hit me in the sense that, okay, I found success in this world. Now, as I go forward, my success is going to be defined by significance. And so how can I provide meaningful impact to those around me in the third and the fourth quarter of my professional life? And so I think that's a rethinking of success for a lot of people who have built some wealth. Can they use their money to give to causes to find significance, or can they use their time and their expertise to give to causes to find success? Either one of those, I think, are very important. So if you have time, if you have resources, what are some healthy ways we can really invest in our future? Because, we all want, I want a world where my kids and grandkids can find, the similar type of inspiration and joy that I've had in life. That's what I want for them. And one way to do that is invest into this society with time and funds.